if you can wrap your head around this one thing, you can start to relate to not just Christianity, but any and all spiritual traditions in a meaningful way. And you can see how they fit in with each other and how they differ from each other, and how they are part of a continuum, and they reflect an evolving human consciousness in a general way. So, and that's just it. That's what you have to understand. You have to understand that human consciousness was not always materialistic. Right now it is. Right now we look at the physical world and we say, oh, this object here in front of me is real. You know, this plant over here is real. But back in the day, people intuited the spiritual reality that gave rise to the physical plane. That's why prior to the 15th century, atheism wasn't really a thing, because people just intuited a spiritual reality. You've got to understand that. You can see that in all the art that was created and the culture that existed in various civilizations. It was clear that God was present in the consciousness of humanity. And one way that you can understand that is you can connect with the idea that the images that arise in your mind nowadays that are just distracting, intrusive thoughts, those were perceived as spiritual realities back in the day. Those were intimations from spiritual beings that guided people. And they also worked a little bit differently too. So as our consciousness evolved, as our etheric body grounded more in our physical body, we became more oriented towards the physical plane. And this granted us a certain freedom. This is all anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner teachings. But we can't just stop. Evolution keeps going, and materialism is to be transcended. And you can do it by first observing nature. Let's say you observe the plant kingdom, and if you're and are really honest with yourself, like shed any sort of atheistic or materialistic scientific biases here. Because when you look at a plant, you think that you're looking at physical matter. But the reality is you are looking at a process in time that gathers up physical matter and uses it for a purpose, right? But if you were really looking at just physical matter, then when the plant died, when the life of the plant left the physical body, when the life body leaves, then the plant would just stay the same, right? But it doesn't, because it falls to the earth and it dies and it becomes ash. And so there's something that's holding that plant together. Plants consist of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and there's nitrogen in the seeds, but they're primarily carbon, which is the physical structure. There's oxygen, which is like the watery aspect, and there's hydrogen, which is a fiery aspect in the plant that causes it to reach upward towards the sun. So knowing that plants are primarily constituted of those three elements, you should theoretically be able to clump those elements together and boom, you have a plant. But that just doesn't happen, right? We see that it's made up of those things, but when we put those things together on our own, we don't have a plant. So that's how you know that there's some life process that you are bearing witness to when you witness the life cycle of a plant that is not accounted for by scientific materialism. So this can be an entry point into imagination. And so apply this to yourself. You think that when you look at your hands or you look in the mirror or you see your, photo of a selfie on the phone screen, you're like, oh, I'm this solid physical body. But did you know that none of the cells that were in your body 7 years ago are still there? You are a completely different being than you were 7 years ago. None of the cells are still there. The life process is, you are a process, but we perceive with the physical senses, these physical bodies, and we consider ourselves to be solid, when in reality we're like 90%, we're like a pillar of water, right? And so that pillar of water, that's the life body, that's the ether body that we need to connect with, that reflects the spirit if we want to pull ourselves out of materialism. Another interesting thing to consider is that the sense of sight, right? We think of it as a physical sense perception, but we don't see light. We only see the things that the light illuminates. And if the light wasn't present, then we wouldn't be able to see those things, and our eyes would never have even formed. So light really comes from the light ether from the sun. It's an etheric sense. And isn't it interesting that there's that illusory aspect? We think that we are seeing because the objects are in front of us, but really it's this invisible, illuminating presence coming from the sun, which isn't just a ball of gas. It's a life-giving cosmic being. We get to see things because of that the selfless nature of the sun that radiates out. And then the moon hops into the picture, and the moon also renounces itself, and it decides to reflect the sun in a selfless act. And so that's one of the positive attributes of the moon. If you're anything like me, you are feeling overwhelmed by where we are as a society and the forces of mechanization that are bearing down upon us. Like, I had to take Instagram off my phone because I had to realize that I was powerless to the forces of the algorithm. Like, it has me. The talons are in deep, and I'm wanting to see what other people are doing. And so I'm engaging I'm wasting hours at a time scrolling through. And then the feeling that I'm left with is one of impotence. Like, I don't have the power to pull myself away from this void and do things in the physical world. It's funny, I've been marinating on this idea that, like, people like to deny the flat earth, but it's like you work for over 8 hours a day on your screen, and then you've got 6 hours of daily screen time on your phone. And it's like, bro, you live on the flat earth. This is the flat earth right here. So compressing us, this digital voodoo doll that I'm leaving on the internet of myself that could be sped up or slowed down or manipulated in any way. It's a vulnerable feeling. And so when you take in images from that perspective, like on this medium, it overwhelms the individual, and it makes the person feel really small and incapable. And Rudolf Steiner said exactly that this was going to happen. And he said that it's actually going to also get worse. So you need to anchor into something, let's say this, you need to anchor into the spiritual aspect of reality that we've forgotten, that we're just kind of turning our back on, that this is a reflection of, this electromagnetic medium right here is a reflection of the spiritual world. We're being given all these gifts that you can achieve through spiritual development over time. They're being given to us at a cost, right? It seems like we're getting them for free, but there's a cost associated with this stuff. Everything eats everything else. So we're being eaten. When we consume content, we're also being consumed by the content. And you can just observe how you feel after a long scroll session, and you know it isn't good. You know it's heavy, depleting. It makes being with your family less exciting, doing the dishes, mowing the lawn, working in the round earth less appealing. And it's by design. Rudolf Steiner said that this age is a materialistic age, and that wouldn't be a problem if the people that had the reins during this time weren't working with dark occult magic to amplify the materialistic effect. And so the medium of this technology, electromagnetism, Steiner and others call this the fallen sun ether. It's decaying light. It's very heavy. It draws down towards the center. And we put ourselves on this medium every day, and we devote our attention to it. So what is that doing to us? There is a star, a malefic star called Algol, that the Greeks looked up at, and it was blinking red, and it hypnotized them in a negative sense. So when they looked up at that star, they intuited that that star was the eye of Medusa. And what happens when you look into Medusa's eyes? You turn to stone, right? So when you think about the cosmos having an effect on the physical plane, you could say that the impulse from this star that ancient humans intuited to be something really negative, something petrifying, everything that turns you into stone in your life is related to that Algol star. And when you think about what turns you to stone, I don't know, but what comes to mind for me is the algorithm captivates me, turns me to stone. I don't even feel anything as well, maybe I do, but it's like almost feeling too much, and it's all very numb. But like when you're scrolling down your feed and you see something like, oh, your family member sharing pictures of a newborn baby, and oh, a really hilarious meme, and then, oh my gosh, there's a mass shooter, and oh, there's some war footage, like the range of experience that you're having on that feed, it really numbs you out, turns you to stone. And it's also associated with alcohol's ability to turn you to stone, to make you cold, to take what's yours when you're drunk, So that's all related to Algol. I find it interesting that it's present in the names of these things. I know that this is kind of like a rambling video, but it really is rooted in kind of this wondering about the state of things and what to do about the mechanization that's happening to people. And to me, the answer is to study spiritual science, to study Rudolf Steiner's work. That is the mission of the American people, well, the Western people, anyone in Western civilization, is to understand mechanical occultism. What are these machines that we're dealing with? Because they're definitely not neutral in the realm of time. So when I say like, oh my gosh, this technology on our phone is evil, people will say, oh, you're being a dualist. There's no such thing as evil. And that is true. That's true at a certain scale. So we live on different scales. And on the scale of duration, like when it's all said and done and we pull ourselves out of the realm of time, there is no evil. But on the way to that getting solved, we have to deal with evil, and there is evil. And I could name some instances that you know are evil, that you couldn't bear if they happened to you or your child or your loved one, you know. So evil is real, and evil is a hindering force that ultimately strengthens you. Another thing that I want to touch on, and it relates to evil and all the stuff that we're going through, is that it's really impossible to have a clear picture. Like, the idea that you have a specific mission, humanity has a specific mission, that is impossible to comprehend if you don't vibe with and understand reincarnation as a reality. You have been here many lifetimes before, and you've got a few more lifetimes to go. And if you don't really understand that, like, reincarnation was also intuited back in the day. It was like, yeah, people remember, and people even still to this day remember previous Earth lives. Think about people who've had near-death experiences. They literally die, and their consciousness continues on. I know someone who had a near-death experience. He died on the operating table, had an open heart surgery, and he was like legally dead for like 20 minutes or something like that. He said he was transported somewhere. He saw everyone that he loved in one section of the area that he was in, and he saw people that he didn't know, but he had a feeling that he was going to come to know them. And basically he said that they were all partaking of the same mind. So there was none of the physical distinction wasn't there. And they could communicate to each other telepathically. So I think that's pretty cool. And then he came back to life, and he had that experience. And so he got to, you know, really experience something firsthand that will change you. The point of this video is to indicate that we should be trying to see things beyond just the physical sense perception. And a really good place to start is the plant kingdom, or your own self. You know, how the cells that make up my hand and my face, like, they were not here 7 years ago. You know, we're in process. And if we can understand, Steiner said, if we can understand the ether, our etheric aspect, that's the water of life. That's the water that reflects spiritual reality. If we can understand this pillar of water that we are, and this vitality, this pranamaya kosha in the Sanskrit tradition, we can get a sense for what our technology does to our life body, and we can get a sense for how we should be spending our time. Is life all about commercial transactions and generating money? Like, certain eyes within us have been co-opted to believe that and feel that sense of urgency around being profitable and being productive. And those need to be balanced out by something. Steiner said, as much time as we spend in sub-nature, which is this electromagnetic realm, it's below the kingdom of nature. Remember, it's the fallen light that draws down towards the center. He said, you need to be spending as much time in supernature, with the supernatural, so elemental beings, angels, archangels, archai, all the things. I won't name them, but we need to be reconnecting with the spiritual reality that underlies the physical reality. And we can do that through wonder, awe, and reverence. Shout out to John Barnwell, Douglas Gabriel, Rudolph Steiner, Kyle. What's up? Much love, y'all. I hope you like this video.